It's a technical challenge, but I do silence my phone at night. And then if there's an emergency, I don't know, like I'm checking my phone in the middle of the night sometimes. Not a lot, but especially now that I have some overnight shifts, I wear a sleep mask and I just push up my sleep mask and I touch the phone to see if there's something that came in on, we use this app called Open Phone to see if there's anything that had come through on that because that's where most of the caregiver and client communication is.
Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Reshape Your Health podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Morgan Nolte, and we are back with Chris. She's one of our Zigly members. She's been getting some mindset coaching, and it's been over a month, I would say, since our last call. And we've had some really groundbreaking or breakthrough moments via email between these coaching calls that we're going to kind of unpack today. And to start off with, Chris, I would love for you to just kind of give us a rundown of how things have gone for you over the last month, what new insights you've been gleaning, and then we'll have we were talking offline. Okay, how do we unpack this? Because there's really been a lot that's gone on, and I think we want to focus on a conversation around values, and then a conversation around boundaries, and then kind of leaning into attachments that cause us to break our own boundaries. So that's kind of the plan for today. But before we get there, just kind of give us a rundown in your own words of how you've been doing, and what insights you've been gleaning.
So I have been working on identifying some of my attachments, and the list is pretty much endless. I think anything that you suggest, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm attached to that too. And I've just been really probably aware more than ever that, even though I totally believe in the fasting and macros and staying hydrated and exercise and all that, and I know that's what I should do, it's like, why can't I do that? And I know it's mindset, and so I'm excited to tackle some of those things. Another thing that we talked about in email was that I have a little bit of a martyr thing going on, and even when we were talking offline about the 6:45 appointment, AM appointment, and you're like, that's another thing, an example of the martyr syndrome or whatever we called it, the martyr complex or the martyr
Identity.
subject line.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about it that way. Like, I know one of my attachments is also to being busy and being in control and um, being attached to a schedule and a lot of different attachments that I guess play into also the martyr side. And I know I have a giving heart, but sometimes I feel like it's more of a attachment that might be more self-centered than actually being a giving person. I don't know which is which sometimes, but yeah. So that's kind of it.
You know, I was journaling and reflecting on this martyr identity because I think it's way more common than people understand. And when we were emailing, I was like, actually, I think I'm one too. And it's like almost like it takes one to know one. So let's kind of start here just a little bit. Like it hit me at like 3 a.m. I must have been thinking about you subconsciously, like, oh, what's going on here? And then the word martyr just popped into my mind. And so then I went and Googled, martyr versus victim. And I'm like, she's certainly not a victim because no one is doing this to her.
Mm.
She's creating these own, like, she's her own boss. She's a grown woman. She's responsible. She's very capable, but she keeps putting herself in situations that require her to give more of herself to other people than we would like, essentially, because it takes a certain amount of bandwidth and time to reach your health and wellness goals. And that time just kind of kept getting hijacked by the wants and needs of other people. So
Right.
to me, that was a pretty clear example. And the other thing was, at least in my own experience, resentment. And they said that, for people who have this martyr identity, they're constantly serving other people. Like you said, you have a, what did you say, a giving heart. Um, they want to give to other people, but it's almost like because of the emotions they get back of feeling worthy, of feeling productive, of like, it's almost like a stroke to our ego, essentially, to serve people. And when I was journaling through it, it's almost like, it's okay to stop serving other people to get their appreciation their respect, their approval, when you learn how to get appreciation, respect, and approval from yourself, we can stop seeking it from other people. Does
Mm.
that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I thought that was very interesting. So, for my own life, just background, like my mom definitely had the martyr identity. Um, Understandably so. I kind of shared some more personal things about my family background. And so growing up, that was the example that I had, as my mom being a martyr and bending over backwards to take care of us and cook for us. And she had her own law firm. Um, and I always felt I didn't understand it, as a kid. And like, why are you working all the time? Like,
Mhm.
why do you want to be home more with me? And then as an adult, I understand it and I respect it. And I like took that identity on as a mom and as a wife. And I felt like when I was drilling through things, the line that came to my mind was if I wasn't doing it all, I wasn't enough. And so my self-worth of that like enoughness was tied to my level of productivity, which was a big flag because my husband was never appreciative of like he was never appreciative enough. I don't know how to say that word right.
Okay.
He never appreciated my efforts enough. And so then I became very resentful to him, which has since been resolved, thankfully. But that was huge, in our marriage. I really started to see that pattern of resentment. And I'm like, wow, I don't want that in my marriage. And so I've kind of been working on my own boundaries and martyr identity. And I think that I just saw it in you probably because I've been working on it myself. And so I thought that was very interesting that we kind of had that shared experience. I feel like I'm a little bit farther along in the solution phase, I guess, of like setting boundaries and releasing attachments. But I think for people listening, like if you're constantly like struggling to say no, um, if you're constantly struggling to set and keep a boundary, if you feel like you're giving, 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 and you're not receiving enough back and you're getting resentful about that, those are all kind of symptoms of this martyr identity, putting the wants and needs of other people above your own and seeking external approval and validation and encouragement instead of just getting that from ourselves. So I wanted to give just a smidge of background on this martyr identity because I felt like that was a pretty big breakthrough in the emails.
Yes, for sure.
Cool. So let's start here. So if that's kind of been going on, how has that been like? Well, let's start with values. I think this is kind of a little bit more of a clear, kind of like a plumb line through the conversation. Did we ever go through your values yet in any of the other coaching calls?
I don't think so.
I didn't think so either. Okay. We are going to have like a monthly mindset coaching call for our members, for our
Mhm.
Zibly members. And this is going to be an exercise that I take them through. I'll just kind of talk with you briefly about it here. But we're going to do a values identification exercise. So I know you're fully capable. You've probably studied values. If you had to tell me like your top 3 to 5 core values, what would you say they are?
Belief in God, first of all. But as far as like my personal values, I would say growth,
Okay.
a growth mindset, honor to commitment, like say what you mean and mean what you say.
Like integrity.
Yes.
Okay.
This is when we were talking offline. This is one of the things where I was like, I might need you to help me with my words because I kind of know what they are, but I don't know how to make them succinct. But I also know that you don't
Okay.
want to give me like multiple choice. So I should be able to say this. But definitely a growth mindset, a giving heart, or I don't know what that word would be, but like just giving to others, which is part of my martyr problem, I'm sure. Generosity,
Generosity. Yeah.
um,
Okay.
security.
Does that mean financial security, emotional security? What type of security does that mean?
Both, but, both. When I said security, I was thinking of emotional security, but I also definitely value financial security. Like, I don't like having debt. Um, it drives me crazy to see people at the malls walking around with big bags, knowing that they were probably putting that all on credit card that they're not gonna pay off at the end of the month. Like, that kinda stuff is like, bugs
Like,
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that family is a value of yours
So,
that you
yeah,
haven't identified yet. Just knowing
definitely.
you.
Most definitely.
And can you think of any other ones?
I'm sure I can. See if I had a wheel that I could choose from of different values.
And that'll be part of the exercise. So, what I really like to do is Brene Brown has a values sheet. And do you want me to pull that up really quick?
Sure.
Okay. I'll pull it up and Brene Brown values list. So this is from her book Dare to Lead. And I'm going to share my screen. There's a lot of them. Okay.
Yay.
Um, is it okay if I just read them off?
Yeah.
And that way people listening can benefit from this as well. So if there's one that jumps out to you, I want you to write it down.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of come back. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Accountability, achievement, adaptability, adventure, altruism, ambition, authenticity, balance, beauty, being the best, belonging, career, caring, collaboration, commitment, community, compassion, competence, confidence, connection, contentment, contribution, cooperation, courage, creativity, curiosity, dignity, diversity, environment, efficiency, equality, ethics, excellence, fairness, faith, family, financial stability, forgiveness, freedom, friendship, fun, future generations, generosity, giving back, grace, gratitude, growth, harmony, health, home, honesty, hope, humility, humor, inclusion, independence, initiative, integrity, intuition, job security, joy, justice, kindness, knowledge, leadership, learning, legacy, leisure, love, loyalty, making a difference, nature, openness, optimism, order, parenting, patience, patriotism, peace, perseverance, personal fulfillment, power, pride, recognition, reliability, resourcefulness, respect, responsibility, risk taking, safety, security, self discipline, self expression, self respect, serenity, service, simplicity, spirituality, sportsmanship, stewardship, success, teamwork, thrift, time, tradition, travel, trust, truth, understanding, uniqueness, usefulness, vision, vulnerability, wealth, well being, wholeheartedness, and wisdom. And then obviously there's space to write your own. Were there any that jumped out there?
Well, there were a lot. Like, I'm writing down a bunch of the A's, and then I'm like, "Holy smokes, I can't keep up with it." And then some of them kind of obviously have some overlap, but are worded better and or might hit home more to somebody else. I mean, like accountability and achievement, um, and ambition. Those are kind of all somewhat related in my mind. Contribution, which is, I think, the what I get out of my work. That's where I feel like I contribute the most is at my work.
Mhm.
Faith and family. Um, Now, we're talking about values though.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm getting sidetracked with thinking about some of the things I'm attached to as well.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah,
because
value.
because I'm looking at financial stability, and I don't really think that's necessarily a value as much as it is something that I'm attached to. But
Isn't that interesting? You could use the same list to identify your attachments as
yeah,
values. Interesting. Okay.
yeah. So I'm wondering. I mean, I do value financial stability, I guess I would say, but I'm also definitely attached to it.
Okay.
Forgiveness is a very important value and something that I have to remind myself about often, being a business owner and a spouse and, a friend and all those things. Health, home for sure, integrity, which again, I think in my mind, like accountability and integrity, those things kind of go together. Perseverance.
Okay.
I mean, like when I read my personal faith formula or when I jump on the Zibly board on the weekends, I'm like, not giving up,
Yeah. I can.
I know this is a journey. I know it's not it's a quick thing, blah, blah, blah. I do think that I value perseverance, and self-discipline. And then some of the things that I value, but know that I don't emphasize or put enough priority on were like serenity, fun, travel. I mean, I love to travel, but it's definitely kind of gotten pushed down on my list of things that are happening. And well-being. Like I value my well-being, but a lot of my other obstacles we know are affecting my well-being.
Mm.
So yeah. So
Some of
those are some
them,
of
but
them,
a
but
lot of
a
them are really
really
great.
great.
I'm glad that you identified health, and that's why I wanted to take you through that exercise. Um, I think a lot of people want to get healthier, but health isn't a value. And it's like, well, if it's not a value, you're not going to see the benefit of spending your time, energy, and money on it. So
Mm.
same thing with your well-being. And then the other thing, I mean, you have a huge list here. So what I would want you to do or encourage you to do is reflect and like narrow it down to 3 to 5,
Okay.
because that's going to give you more clear focus on your litmus test for making a decision,
Okay.
essentially. So if we can get it down to 3 to 5, that's going to be essential. And I'm guessing that integrity will be up there for you. I'm guessing that God will be up there for you. Family. I think in some way, shape, or form, health or well being, I would like to see up there. Um, and then there's probably something like maybe the growth. I'm trying to circle some. My point in doing this is to show you that right now you have kind of some conflicting values, especially the earlier ones, like before you identified health as a value. So generosity was one of the ones that you listed, and then the financial security. And so let's kind of talk about how these are like we can see evidence of conflicting values, which is why it's really important to kind of rank them to say, okay, this is important to me, but this is more important to me. So that way you know, like, okay, I'm making decisions from my highest values and not some things that are important to me, but not as important to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I don't know if this makes a difference, but I don't think I said generosity, but I said contribution.
Okay. Contribution.
Because I feel like I contribute in a way when I think of generosity, I think of it more as like financially giving.
Okay.
And I feel like I contribute more with my time and my, just making people feel loved and stuff like that versus
Okay.
giving them money.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the contribution and the like, just for purposes of this conversation, should I use health or well-being for the conflicting value there?
Um, well-being.
Okay, well-being. right? Because you want to contribute so much to other people and you have a giving heart, and it's happening at the expense of your own time, your own energy. And I've told you kind of offline, I've probably told you on the podcast, we can't manage our time. We have to manage our activities. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. This really comes down to managing your activities and your energy.
Yeah.
And that happens through boundaries. So when we're looking at our values, we need to figure out how can they all coexist in harmony. It's not like, certain, like Sunday, for example. I don't know if you go to church, but like a lot of people who prioritize God go to church on Sunday. Like the value of God and faith is going to obviously take more time on Sunday than it does on Wednesday.
Right.
And same goes probably for contribution. Like you're going to have busier work days than others. But how can we hold space for all of our top values at one time and create our schedule and manage our activities to support that? And I think that's why you've had this, I would call it a, how do I say it? The other thing that I think is huge is integrity. I think is a big value of yours. And so this integrity, you're having this cognitive dissonance going on, creating this strong emotion in you of like, I don't know if it's self-disappointment or self-frustration, that you're not able to keep your word because of these conflicting values between contribution and well-being.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So this is going to take some work, but I'm hoping that you're following and hoping the listeners are following on. You got to figure out what those values are and then create a life that allows those values to live in harmony with each other, not be at odds with each other or competing with each other. And this is possible. This is possible. And you know that you're doing this when the predominant state that you're in is peace and calm and joy and happiness, and you're not worrying all the time. And is that your dominant state right now?
Absolutely not.
We hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
What is your dominant state right now?
Stress and overwhelm for
Okay.
sure. I mean, yeah.
And so I think that this interview, I think it's so cool how God works. Like I could just like cry talking about how great, it's like we make our plans, and then he sets the course.
Mhm.
And it's so interesting that this interview is going to go live the same week that I'll be taking our members through a very similar experience
Oh, wow.
on Wednesday, September 4th. And so it'll be so cool for them to like hear this interview, hear you doing this, hopefully seeing themselves like, oh my gosh, I am stressed and overwhelmed. And that's probably for me not having crystal clarity about my values, and more importantly, not intentionally designing my life. And my values are conflicting with each other. And it's like, God, that's stressful. That's overwhelming. So, man, that's so cool. Okay. Moving on. So now we've kind of identified some of those core values. We've identified that your primary emotional state is stress and overwhelm. And have you ever heard the saying, like, you don't manifest more of what you want, you manifest more of what you are?
I've probably heard some version of that, and that makes a lot of sense.
Like from Tony Robbins, right? Like the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, dang it. Because I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm not happy most of the time, and I'm manifesting more of that. And so how do you want to feel? This is a very important starting place. So how do you want to feel?
Peaceful, happy,
Okay.
lighthearted.
I love that so much. Okay. Now you have an office, right? And I'm not going to turn my camera around, but like vision board, like I know you're into Tony Robbins and stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought there's this wall right here where I can see all the time. And I'm like, well, should I create a vision board? And it's like, no, why would I create a space where I just like want all the time? Like I'm just going to be like manifesting more desires of want. And that's not how I want to live. So I made a gratitude board. And on that gratitude board are pictures of my friends and family with like little cards of my prayer intentions for them. And so I'm constantly reminded of all the good things in my life. And if you were to do something like that, or even like put a Post-it on your desk or in your car, or adding to your personal faith formula these 3 words: peaceful, happy, and lighthearted. Like, if that's how you want to feel, you will only get there by feeling them. More money in the bank will not solve that problem. A lighter weight will not solve that problem, because those are emotions, right? So we have to solve, we get essentially to an emotional state from the inside out, not the outside in.
Mhm.
And do you have your personal faith formula with you right now?
I do. I just opened it up to
Here.
see what I have about my emotional side of it.
Okay, yeah, read through it and let me know if there's anything about being peaceful, happy, and lighthearted.
Yeah, I'm full of happiness, peace, life satisfaction, playfulness, generosity, and love.
Okay, so this,
But I mean, not those words, but well, happy isn't. Oh, peace is in there, but the lighthearted is not actually in there. But then the next sentence is, I am financially secure, interested and interesting, magnetic and confident, and I have abundance of vitality now and for decades to come. My family and work team all benefit from my improved health, and I'm whom I've always wanted to be and whom God meant for me to be. There I go crying again.
I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that. I'd add lighthearted, right? But I think the very, 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 very cool thing that's happening right now is this cognitive dissonance between what you're telling yourself every day
Right,
and your personal faith formula and your lived experience.
right.
And that's the importance of this personal faith formula. Is you get in this state of mind when you create it that's true and pure. And then you read that to yourself every day. You try to embody those emotions. And then you might have life experiences that don't match up with your vision. And that's just it's almost like a highlighter on your life of like, okay, what's not adding up here? And that's this conversation that we're unpacking today is you want to feel peaceful, happy, and lighthearted. But I've learned this personally. I just love learning from business. Like I think that,
Mm.
man, if you want to have like a crash course in personal growth, start a business.
Yeah.
Um, and so or get married or have kids or like, do it all at once. So I was never going to create a business that allowed me to have peace and freedom um, if I wasn't feeling that way while I was creating it. And so you have to feel your way there, essentially. That's the only way this works. You can't be stressed out and overwhelmed for like 3 years and then all of a sudden the peaceful, happy, lightheartedness comes in. That's just not how our emotions work. So I think for you, a big part of this solution is going to be boundaries around your time to create peaceful, happy, lighthearted experiences. And maybe like that's the tweak that we need to make to the language in your personal faith formula is, I am intentional to create a time um, and experiences that allow me to feel peaceful, happy, and lighthearted. So what does it say right now? If you rerun that to me.
I'm full of happiness, peace, life satisfaction, playfulness, generosity, and love.
Yeah. And that's not true all of the time yet. Like that's not true the majority of the time. And that's why this dissonance is happening in your heart. But if we tweak it just a little bit with, I am intentional to create experiences. Maybe that's that slight shift in language that's a little bit softer and a little bit more true to where you're at right now, and a little bit more specific for your brain to follow through. Because then when you're reading it, it's either a yes or a no. Like you're gonna look at your schedule and you're gonna be like, okay, this week, is there space in my schedule to feel peaceful, happy, and lighthearted? And if not, then that's gonna be kind of part of that weekly process when we're making this schedule and be like, "Ugh, okay, I have to do this. The other thing that really came to my mind, where was it? Oh, you're attached to being busy. One of the first things you said.
Yeah.
And I almost think for that, the antidote is the complete opposite. Like forcing yourself to sit still and like do a guided meditation for 10 minutes. Do you try that already or do
Oh,
you have
yeah.
that?
No,
Okay.
I my best friend told me for years that I needed to slow down and meditate. I'm like, "No, like, I like to go. That's how I feel my stress relief." And I may have told you on a previous podcast, but, like, during COVID, my husband and I were walking every day, and then we'd come back and we'd do the, that Adrian yoga, like the 30 days with Adrian yoga
Uh-huh.
on
Yeah.
YouTube. And then whenever it was done, I would just lay on my yoga mat and set a timer with Alexa for 5 minutes until it was done. And then I'd get up and go. And like, I've always believed in God. I've never felt like he left my side, but the only time I've ever like literally heard his voice was when I was meditating one day. I mean, like I opened my eyes because like I heard his voice. And that's when he said, now is the time. And I got up and told my husband, and I quit my job that day as a physical therapist. I mean, I gave my notice and I started running my business full time because that's what I had been praying about. So I left my job that day, and that's like how I know that my business, although it's super stressful at times, like I know that it's blessed and anointed by God. So yeah, I mean, meditation works, but I just like have not slowed down. And that has been one of the things on my, when I'm journaling and doing my mindset stuff, like I know I intentionally need to set time to do that, but I find it so hard to even make myself do it for 5 minutes now, and it's only 5 minutes. I get that. Like, that's the part of me that's like, when I was saying I believe in all this stuff, but I just don't do it. It's like, why can you just not do that? I mean, 5 minutes is nothing.
Um, I love that. So there's gonna be some things that I circle back to from that inspiration that you got.
Mhm.
And okay, man, there's so many different directions that we could go here. I wrote down the phrase space for inspiration because I think that this naturally leads us into we have our values, we have how you want to feel. Now we need to go about creating experiences and space in your schedule to do that. And what you gave me some like offline, you gave me a couple of very clear examples of where you broke that boundary. So if I had to just press you and say, tell me your working hours, like tell me your non-negotiable, I don't work before this time and I don't work after this time, what would you like? What's your ideal there?
Ideal, not what I'm doing currently.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ideal would be 10 to 4.
10 to 4. Okay.
Mhm.
What is a realistic right now? Not what you're currently doing, but what's realistic right now? What would feel an integrity, I guess, right now?
That's a really good question. Adding the second business/job has definitely complicated that. Um, I mean, I think 9 to 5 is fair
Okay.
and the norm and acceptable, and, uh, yeah.
I think it's a good starting point for you.
Yeah.
Because what is your current work experience and working hours?
Probably 7:30 to 10-ish. I mean, not like I'm at my desk. I didn't mean AM to PM too. And it's not like I'm at
Yeah.
my desk that whole time, but I'm checking texts and responding to caregivers, and clients are texting me about their schedule, and I mean, it may just be a little thumbs up that I give them, but I acknowledge them and I work outside of typical hours for
Yep.
sure.
And what attachment is leading you to work outside of the realistic and realistic working hours that feel an integrity with you at this point in time?
Um, Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about just feeling valued and appreciated. Like, my client and my team love me because of how responsive and thoughtful I am, and I gain a lot from that. I mean, it's good for business obviously too. But yeah, it's just the recognition and appreciation that comes with doing it that way.
Do you do all of this communication via phone or do you have a separate platform where you do team communication and client communication?
I Most of it's all on my phone for sure. Some of it's on the computer, but my phone is my computer. So, I mean, I have
And
my
but what platform? Is it just text messaging or is it Slack or what do you use for that?
it's texting primarily. I've got I have an app that I use that comes to my phone for text messaging and calls. but that one, my care coordinator can also see the texts and calls that are coming in. So we're both getting those. And then I've got my personal line going through my phone too, which a lot of people use because it's the same phone. So I used to give them out my regular phone number.
Mhm. And what would happen if you told your team and your clients, I would be able to be reached from 9 to 5?
I've done that before and then it's my fault that I don't follow through with it. I mean,
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
there's some people that I mean, I don't respond to 100% of the stuff, but like last night, for example, I had a client, the caregiver was supposed to leave at 8 and she messaged me and said that the lady wasn't doing well, so she stayed until 9. So, I just said thanks. I mean, just little things like that. But it is while my daughter's sitting next to me on the couch and we're watching TV and she's getting to move the
Right.
DC. So it is in the middle of life typically.
Absolutely.
And then the daughter of the caregiver messaged me and said, Janine was so sweet to stay and she's so helpful and I want to adopt her and da 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 da, so I give her a heart, so it's just constantly going through my day because I have
Absolutely.
people working 24/7.
Yep. And I think as the owner of the business, you set the tone, you set the expectations.
Right.
So would you want Janine feeling like she has to respond to you at 9 at night?
No.
Would you want a client's daughter to feel like she has to respond to you at 9 at night?
No.
So this is kind of the crux of the issue. You set the tone. And so what's preventing you, what attachment is preventing you from holding that boundary of 9 to 5 that you've tried to do before, but you just didn't do it? What attachment is there?
Um,
I mean, that feeling valued and appreciated. Never, you said that. What else? If you want a little
just
deeper, I can.
maintaining some structure to the business because like when you asked what I want Janine to respond to me, not if I was just like, hey, can you do this, that, and the other next week, but if it was urgent, like for a shift for tomorrow, or if she was talking to me about the shift that she was on and she had a specific issue, then I do feel like I have to communicate with that. I mean, there's certainly things that I do need to go back and forth about.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, go back to what your question was. What about the
Yeah.
night?
So what prevents you from maintaining that boundary of 9 to 5? I'm available for questions. I'll respond to you between the hours of 9 to 5.
I think if it's a phone call, I'm much better about ignoring it because that message is on there.
Okay.
But texts, I just feel like it's so simple to send a response, and so I do. Um, but I think, again, I feel like it's good for business to be responsive. But do I think that it would have been a big problem if I would have waited until this morning at 9 o'clock to respond to the client who was appreciative? No, I definitely could have waited and responded to her.
Okay. And you said, I feel like it's good for business. Is it better for business if you're burnt out or if you're not burnt out?
Oh, no, it'd be definitely, I don't need to be burnt out. That's not good for business. Yeah.
So I think it all comes down to like the story that you're telling yourself and really taking the space between that. Okay, this is the underlying thought that's driving this behavior. It's good for business. Yes, being responsive is good for business. But a leader burnt out is very bad for business. You're not going to be making your best decisions. And I go back to meditation where God spoke to you. And when I said space for inspiration, like right now in your current rhythm of life, I don't think that there's space for inspiration, you know? And in order for, what's good for business is you inspired, like you not stressed out, you firing on all cylinders. And that just simply requires some boundaries. And it's okay to pre-communicate with your clients and your team that, hey, I know that I've been super responsive all the time. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. And in order to be the best leader that I can be for you, I have to create a little bit more space or boundary around my work time and my home time so that I can recharge and show up as the best leader that I can. And so moving forward, this is going to be the do not expect a response from me after the hours of 5 or before the hours of 9. If it's an emergency, this is going to be our form of communication. So if they really need to get a hold of you, do you prefer they call you? Do you prefer they like how do you want that? Because I think that's the crux is like when you don't have like when you're in the line of work that you're in and somebody has a question and it's emergent, like you have to get to that, right?
Right.
But we need to have a different channel of communication so that you're not drawn into non-emergent communication that's mixed in with emergent communication. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what would be, and you might not have the answer right now, but if you do, you can share it. Like, what do you think would be a better idea for if there's an emergency, do this?
Well, I definitely think if they called, I would know it's more urgent because we text all the time. So even just simply having them call. I mean, the other thing is, um, it's a technical challenge, but I do silence my phone at night. And then if there's an emergency, I don't know, like I'm checking my phone in the middle of the night sometimes. Not a lot, but especially now that I have some overnight shifts, I wear a sleep mask and I just push up my sleep mask and I touch the phone to see if there's something that came in on, we use this app called Open Phone to see if there's anything that had come through on that because that's where most of the caregiver and client communication is. Um, so I don't know if I should not silence my phone. No, because I'll be still getting text.
You can silence the notifications from the Open app or whatever it was called, Open Phone.
But what if there's an emergency?
Can't they call you?
But then that's what I'm saying, my phone will be silenced. I can work through this offline, Morgan. I'm sorry.
I I was gonna say we've pinpointed a problem that needs a solution.
Uh-huh.
You need to be able to be reached for emergencies outside of working hours.
Mhm.
But other than that, your brain needs a break.
Okay.
Your brain needs space to be inspired, to feel peaceful, happy, and lighthearted. And ideally, as soon as possible, you get a buffer person between you and the emergency. Like I feel like that should be a top priority is reducing the number of emergencies or which may not be possible, but like figuring out a layer in between you and the emergency.
Okay.
That would be ideal.
Okay. And I'm working on that because I did just hire a care coordinator, but we're still very much in the training phases, and I've just been too busy to spend a lot of time training her actually lately. So, but things will slow down after I get my daughter moved too, which is next week. So, okay.
So I think those are some really big things that we've kind of come down to is this attachment to feeling valued and appreciated, the attachment for kind of maintaining a high level of excellence, I think, within your business, doing what's best for your business. And I think we just need to reframe that belief that you being on all the time is actually what's best for your business because it's not.
Yeah.
Because your role as the leader and the visionary is to come to the table with new ideas, with great leadership, with new inspiration. And that simply can't happen if you're burnt out because, right, we don't manifest more of what we want, we manifest more of what we are. You're just going to keep creating a business that makes you stressed and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really big breakthrough. How do you feel about kind of this so far?
I feel good. I agree. And I mean, it's not a novel idea. I've gone through this thought before and even mentioned to them that I might not be super responsive and that type of thing, but I didn't really stick with it. So it's just one of those things that's on repeat and might take another shot to be successful because I mean, I definitely see the value in it.
Is it in your personal faith formula that's like, I work between the hours of 9 and 5
No.
and only respond to I only respond to emergencies outside of the hours of 9 to 5 or because I know that sounds so simple and also a little bit silly, but if it's a habit that's super hard to break, I really encourage you to add that to your personal faith formula to
Okay.
keep it top of mind.
Yes.
For that, it's 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, you're checking your phone, you're gonna look at Instagram, and then you're like, oh, let me look at the open phone app and see if there's any messages in there. Hey, the other question that I have for you is, okay, I have my phone open. Is open app on the first screen?
Oh, yeah. It's on the bottom. It's on the
Oh, it's on the dot.
yeah.
Girl.
It's way
Okay.
here on the bottom. Mm.
What I would suggest is moving that to like the second or third. So we use Slack in our business for communication.
Uh-huh.
And I tell all of my team members, like, set the do not disturb on Slack. For whatever hours you don't want to be notified or disturbed. And then it's on the second page for me. So you can see here. Oh, where is it? Right there. It says Slack right there. I don't have any notifications right now. But that way, when I'm popping up my phone to check my text messages or to see if I have a missed call from my family or friends, I'm not cued into work mode because I see a notification. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I can't imagine not having that on my first screen.
Why?
Wait a minute. Do you hear that? Can you hear that noise? I put my
No.
I don't did you hear that noise?
Oh.
Oh, it was my open phone making a noise, and I put it on do not disturb before this meeting, and I don't know if it's because I touched the app that it started making that noise. But no,
Maybe.
it's like my business phone. I can't imagine not having it on the first page during business hours, at least.
Oh, it's fine. It literally just takes a swipe of a thumb. It's not gonna give you thumb arthritis. But it'll guard your piece up, open phone on the computer, on the desktop, and I respond to those messages on the desktop, not even the phone. Like, I use this to see if I have a notification, and then I'll go to the desktop to, like, deal with it. Because I do a lot of video messages or, like, screen share stuff. So, Chris, we kind of identified that the reason that you're working outside of working hours is a couple, but I think primarily so that you feel valued and appreciated, because when you are quick to respond, people value that and they appreciate that. And then we also kind of talked about how you feel like it's good for business. But what we really discovered is what's good for business is a leader that is not burnt out and a leader that leads with integrity and kind of does what she says she's going to do. So if she says, I'm not going to respond between the hours of or after the hours of 9 to 5, except for emergencies, you stick to that. And so we talked about moving the open phone app off the dock to reduce that visual stimuli outside of working hours. And my next question, I think this is a good place to wrap it up, is, how can you make yourself feel valued and appreciated by yourself so that you can stop seeking that externally through your business?
So that's when I start doing this whole catch-22 in my head, because like the way that I would feel valued and appreciated by myself or internally would still be to say what I mean and mean what I say. So like with my the journaling and stuff, I know we're supposed to do actions for the day. And if I look back and didn't go to the gym and didn't drink all my water, then I beat myself up about it. So because I believe in the, do what you say and say what you mean and all that kind of stuff. So I guess the way to make myself feel valued and appreciated would be to do that consistently, which comes back to the whole point of I should be doing it and I want to do it. And I have to make the space in my schedule and value my own wellness enough to get it done.
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of started with values and then we end on the word value, but in a little bit of a different sense. And I'm going to just ask you very point blank, what if you asked yourself every single day, like, what's one thing I appreciated about myself today? How would you answer that question right now? What's one thing that you have appreciated about yourself over the last 24 hours?
Probably that I'm a hard worker, which is not, which is the part of the problem. I mean, and I had my family here last night, so I'm glad that I valued family time and honoring my daughter who's worked hard and getting ready to move to DC. And made her feel loved and appreciated too. Um, and I mean, in full transparency, I also feel good about the fact that I did respond to my caregiver and my client last night, but I also realize that that's something I need to work on. But that
Yep.
is, if you're looking at the last 24 hours, yeah, I loved that she was grateful for what my caregiver did and showed her appreciation, and I liked that I responded. But yes, I understand all the reasons why I need to work on that area.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that it's a catch, like you said, it's a catch 22. So what are some things moving forward? How are some ways that you can show yourself that self-love and appreciation and respect and value that don't involve work?
Taking the time to slow down, and I mean, even if I stopped and meditated for 5 minutes, I do think that's showing myself that I'm worthy of that time, and that it's necessary.
I do too. I think that's really going to be the magic, and not biting off more than you can chew. So just like choosing that one action item for the day, if that's what you can fit in right now as you're working to create stronger work boundaries, but then really acknowledging that, because I think you still struggle with some negative self-talk. And so really just fueling your soul with positive self-talk, with appreciation. Like I kid you not. Yesterday, this just happened so naturally. It was just an emotional day yesterday in general, various things. It was a high energy demand day from work. And I just started talking to myself like I was my mom talking to me. I said, "It's okay, honey. Like you know what? All you need to do right now is just go lay down and rest. Like that's all you have to do right now. Like you worked so hard today. You did a great job. Now go just shut your brain off and rest for a little bit."
Yeah.
And so when we can kind of develop that positive self-talk, I think that that will help us. And so anytime you catch yourself speaking negatively to yourself or about yourself or shitting all over yourself, like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, just stop, because that's not appreciating yourself. That's not respecting yourself. That's being a bully to yourself and putting yourself down. So I think with you, the antidote to all of this is going to be very intentional with your activity management. Number one, being very intentional with ways that you're showing yourself love, respect, appreciation, and really bolstering that positive self-talk. Number three. And number four, just like you're going to modify that personal faith formula to, I am intentional to create experiences that allow me to enjoy peace, happiness, and lightheartedness. And then I would like what my husband and I do every week. We really like to have like a weekly meeting where we talk about our meal plan and finances, which is always like we're over the budget on food and dining, like all the time. On repeat, we're over the budget on food. Okay. But like, what's our bucket filling activity for the week? And so I really like to have a bucket filling activity, at least one, preferably more. I like to have the exercise time in there. I think is helpful for me mentally. And then I don't really have a like obviously my morning mindset routine, but the meditation, I feel like I just I've been like squeezing it in to like pockets throughout the day where it's like I'm trying to listen to myself, and maybe I'll give you a line that you can use. And instead of forcing me to work more, like forcing myself to check the emails or the Slack messages, it's just like I'm feeling a little bit of resistance to that. So I'm trying to be more intuitive about my heart and my soul and like what it needs. And it's like if I feel in the flow with work, like I'm going to do it. But if I feel like I need to take a step back and like go meditate for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I'm going to do that. So feeling that resistance internally to say, is this a time to engage with work, or is this a time to kind of retreat and go into myself, and then I can engage with work in a little bit more rejuvenated way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So one line that I really like is I take inspired and energetically aligned action. Is that one in yours?
No.
I would put that in there. That's been very helpful for me because like I said, if I'm taking inspired and energetically aligned action, I know that I want to feel calm, peaceful, happy. And so if I'm doing things that make me feel tense or stressed, or worried, I know that's not an energetic alignment with how I want to show up. And so it's just a very nice litmus test for like, is the activity that I'm about to engage in energetic alignment, or do I need to wait just a little bit? Do I need to kind of bolster my own energy a little bit with a walk or a meditation? Or is it just something that, dude, can I just cancel it? Can I reschedule it? Like sometimes that has to happen too. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. Can I ask you a quick question? When you went through
Of
my
course.
list of being very intentional with activity management, what was second before bolstering my self-talk? Do you have a list there, or are you just rattling that off your head?
That was off my head.
It was
So how
very intentional with something. It was be very intentional with activity management and something else, and then bolstering self-talk and be intentional to set intentional to.
I mean, being intentional to create experiences that allow you to feel peaceful, happy, and lighthearted. Was that it?
No, that was the last one. That's okay. I'll listen to the podcast when it comes out.
Go back if you press the 30 seconds back a few times because that was just spitballing.
Okay, cool.
Yep,
Thank you.
of course. Oh, well, I've so enjoyed our time together. I think that your experience is going to provide a lot of value to the podcast listeners, our members, our YouTube viewers. I think that this is the real work. This is not counting macros. This is not exercising. This is the mindset work that helps create the space and the margin time and the mental energy to follow through on the other action items that need to get done. And I think that really came out in one of our emails between the sessions is, the purpose of this was mindset coaching. It's
Right.
okay that you have like no physical results yet, but I think it's so interesting how everyone's already like, are always just so focused on the weight loss and so focused on the physical results. And then I told you that. And I almost felt like via email, there was like a weight lifted off your shoulders. Like, oh yeah, this is mindset work. Like it's okay that the results aren't there yet because this has been in the way. Was that
Yes.
kind of your experience? That's kind of the sense that I got from email.
Yes, for sure. Because I felt like I was letting you down and letting myself down when things weren't happening. And then it's like, oh, yeah, that's because we still have major issues to work on with my mindset. So,
Yep.
yeah.
And I hope that this provided a really good just structure for you to continue to self-reflect and identify your values, your values, how those values are going to coexist in your schedule. So what your intentional schedule is, some sort of self-reflection practice to say, am I living in integrity with my values? Am I doing what I said I'm going to do? If not, why? And then what are the underlying attachments? And how can I think differently? How can I change that belief? How can I work that into my personal faith formula and my mindset routine to instill those new beliefs? I think this is like a very nice way to kind of tie it all together.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. I really
Thanks,
appreciate
Chris.
it. I-
I've appreciated the time with you. It's always fun because I feel like I learn a lot from people that I coach and like glean new insights that I didn't have before. So thanks for allowing me the opportunity to coach you.
Oh, thank you. I can't say enough how much I appreciate you and your guidance and your wisdom and your patience and all that. And I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
And my pleasure. I wish you the very, very, very best of luck. And
Thank
move that app off the dock.
Okay, I'll do
That's
that
your
next.
action item today.
Okay, I'll try it. I'll give it a
All
shot.
right.
I'll move it.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, bye.
Bye.